Hi, in this video we will learn how to cache data and retrieve cache data. In short, caching is used to improve the data retrieval performance in your backend applications. Typically what happens is that when you cache data, it is stored in a high performance storage area. Instead of going to the database and fetching records, your application directly fetches data from this high-speed storage area. Of course, there are some disadvantages associated with caching. The cost of storing data in this high-speed area is much higher than storing data in a typical database, so you need to balance out the performance improvement versus the cost implications. For this purpose, we will be using an application called Random Codes. This is an application where popular codes from people are served. Let me show you the data structure, how it looks like. If you go to the test panel, and if I open this random, this basically returns the random number of 30 codes randomly from the database. So if I run this thing, basically there are some group, there is an author for the code and the code itself. So if I run this thing next time, it changes because it's retrieving the records from the database randomly. So let's see how caching works actually. Okay, let's go to the let's say one of the services we already have. This is the get list of codes object. Let's get into the details of this service. It's very simple actually. Then we've got a start node with it doesn't have any kind of input parameters. Then we've got a node called get multi objects by query. This basically fetches data from the codes model, code state collection in the database, and it returns basically the first 100 codes, and you can also do some pagination here, but that's it. So if I go back to here, if I go to the get list of codes, okay, if I run this thing, it fetches the codes from the database. Every time it will show me the same codes because we don't have any changes in the database, so it's not getting the records randomly, it's getting the same records. Okay, let's go to the service logs, how long it takes to run this node. As you can see, typically this get multi objects by query takes about 3 milliseconds. Let's say 4 milliseconds, 2.7, 3, something like around like on the higher level of 2, between 4, 5, something in that range. Okay, so let's do something like this. I will show you something. Let's assume that, okay, we will be caching the data that we retrieve from the database. Okay, so for that purpose we will be cache list of objects in memory because this node returns a list of objects. Okay, and we will be caching the returned objects, and our cache key will be, this should be a unique value. Okay, you can give whatever name you want. Let's put here my codes. Okay, then I cache this thing, then I return the cached value as a response. Okay, that's what I will be doing. Then the first node that I will be using is get list of cached objects. Okay, if it is found, I need to write here my key, my codes. This should match, the key should match here. Okay, so I'm trying to get the codes. The retrieved object model, I caught codes object in the high speed storage area, so this is type of codes. Okay, and I will be retrieving that. If I find the codes objects, then I will be returning them directly. Okay, so I will be returning them directly. If I don't find them in the cache, okay, then I will be fetching them from the database, cache them in the high-speed storage area, and then return the cached version. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's go back to our service execution. Okay, this was our service. Let's go to here. Let's run it. Okay, it retrieved the codes object. Let's go to the service logs. This is like 12 milliseconds. Let's run it next again. Okay, right now it should be already cached. Okay, as you can see, since it is cached, it is only running the get list of cached objects. It doesn't run because it's flowing through this branch because we already cached the data. It's returning the cached data. So in that case, we are not moving from the right hand side branch. So it's returning directly the data from the cache. As you can see, the speed improvement, I mean, this is less than 1 milliseconds. Okay. Typically like that. Let me see. Yeah. That's usually less than 1 milliseconds. So this is a significant performance improvement in terms of getting the data. Okay. Let me show you another thing actually. Let's do something like this. Okay, let's update one of the cached value. Okay, let's update a code. Update code. Let's create a new service. Let's make it put. Okay, then the path parameter will be codes. Then linear service will be update code. Okay, this is that one. Update code. Okay, so what we'll be doing is very easy. Let's put the input parameter new tag. Okay, we will be updating the tag of a code. Let's put update single object, update object fields by ID. Okay, we will be also getting the code ID. Let's put here. Okay, this is what I will be doing. Then we will be updating the code object. Which code object we will be updating? We are getting the IDs from the input parameters, the path IDs, path parameters, code ID. Which value I will be updating? I will be updating the tag. And what will be the new value of the tag? It's coming from as a query string parameter, new tag. Okay. Then I can return response the updated code object. Okay, so that's what we will be doing. So let's go to this one. When we will get the list of the codes, this is the list that we get. Okay, so this is the code ID I will be updating. Let's do an update here. Okay, and what will be the tag, new tag? What will be the original tag? It was money. It was, let's put here, I don't know, happiness. Let's do the update. Okay, I did the update happiness. Okay, let's go back to here. Let's see what will happen. Okay, it doesn't change, right? I updated this thing to happiness, the tag to happiness, but it doesn't return me back. It doesn't return me back the updated version, updated value. Why is the case? As some of you already guessed, okay, the reason for that one is get codes. Where's the list of the codes? Yeah, here, this one. Because since we cache the data, it's always getting the data from the cache. And when we updated that specific code object, which was one of the cached values, we didn't update the list of codes object in the cache. That's why it's getting the older values. If I do something like this, if I go back to the original version, okay, remove the caching stuff, and if I try to retrieve directly from the database, okay, if I go back to here, let's get the list of the stuff. As you can see, you can see the updated value here. So one quick lesson for caching is that it significantly improves the performance, but particularly when you are caching a list of values, you need to be very careful. If one of the objects in your list is updated, then you may need to update the cached objects, cache the list of objects. Okay, that's one thing that you need to take into consideration. Another thing I would like to mention here is the following. Actually, let's go back here. Let's get a code. Let's create a new endpoint. Get code, and let's see. Then this is basically codes, and this will be having a code ID. This basically fetch the code object from the database. Let's get code. Okay, let's get the service. This is a very simple service. It will directly get single object but by ID. We get the ID from the path parameter, we're getting a code object, path parameter IDs, code ID, then we will return back the retrieved object as a response. Okay, I'm sure that it will return something because I know the ID and so on, so I'm not writing anything for the not found branch right now. Okay, so let's go back to our here. This is the ID of the code. Let's get that specific code. Okay, let's put this one. Happiness, it's working fine. Okay, so let's have a look to the milliseconds. 2 milliseconds, 1.5, 1.6, 2.4, 1.5, etc. Okay, so there is also a built-in functionality for get and update nodes in Altogic. Okay, if you are updating or getting a single object, you have the option to cache the data to the high-speed storage area by default. So if I put here, like, let's say, cache the data for 15 minutes, okay, what it will do is following. It will first check whether the data is available in the high-speed storage area using the ID as the key. If it exists, it will return that data from the cache and return it. Okay. If it doesn't exist, it will go to the database, cache the data with that specific ID, get the data from that database, cache it in the high-speed storage area, and then return back the response. So let's go back here. Okay, so we enabled the caching here, as you can see. Okay, let's go back here. If I run this service again, okay, this is the first time. This means that it should be cached. This data should be cached in the database in the high-speed storage area. So let's go to the service logs. As you can see, it's less than 1 milliseconds because it's retrieving the data from the cache. Okay, let's go back here. Let's go back to here. Update code service. This was the service that we were using to update the code. I will also do the caching here. Okay, cache for 15 minutes. What it happens is the following. It updates the object in the database, but also updates the cache with that specific object ID as the key in the high-speed storage area. Okay, so let's go back to here. Let's put here. Let's put it back to money. Oh, sorry, not here. Money. Okay, let's update it. I updated this one. Let's get the list of the code. Sorry, not the list of the code. Get code. Okay, let's get it. Money. Okay, and what's the duration? Less than 1 milliseconds. Okay, so there is also a convenience method that you can use for particularly for nodes, database nodes that return a single object, usually by ID, and in that case Altogic uses the ID because it's a unique value, unique identifier, as the key for caching the data in the database in the high-speed storage area. Okay, so that's all for caching. I hope that helps. Thanks a lot.